Welcome to Hot Topics in International Trade, brought to you by Bromiller Law Group and Bromiller Consulting Group. Hi, this is Bob Brewer with Bromiller Law Group and Bromiller Consulting Group. Welcome to the podcast. With me, once again, Senior Associate Attorney Brandon French.
Hi.
Now, as many of you may know, watching this and have already filed IEEPA, this is the man at Bromiller Law Group who has been, you and I don't know, we've done a lot of work on the IEEPA filings over the past, 3 months?
Yeah, it's been a lot.
Been a lot. Okay, so give me kind of the lay of the landscape right now, if you don't mind. Where are we on this?
Oh, man. Well, I think right now, really, there's a lot of back and forth between customs and the government. Everyone's kind of eager to figure out the refund process, right? We're talking to a lot of people about, how do we get our money back? And I think a lot of the answers are still unclear right now. I know there's a conference happening today that might shed a little more light on that.
Right.
But I think really what people should be doing right now, if they're not already set up with it, is getting an ACE account, looking at their import data, and getting a better sense of the status of their entries, whether they're falling into the categories of unliquidated entries, liquidated entries, or potentially finally liquidated entries. And then being able to make kind of a determination based on some of the recent court orders and the CBP, the back and forth, as to what you should be doing moving forward.
Yeah, Judge Eaton, and he's, when they first had come, the government said, we delay. He's like, no, this isn't going to happen. In fact, he wanted it now, and they said, there's no way possible. The infrastructure's not there.
Right.
We need to set something up, and that's where CAPE comes into play.
Right.
So CAPE beats ACE, and then that's what you're talking about. So this system that they set up, last time I checked, they said that they were, 50% of the way there? Because he's checking in with them almost on a daily basis as to how's this coming along.
Right. I think the last I saw, there's different processes and different percentages, but it seems like they're about 70% of the way complete.
70 now?
But, I don't think the story will end there. I think there's likely going to be some appeals and whatnot in the near future that could probably delay refunds. I think they'll have the system potentially set up in the next month or so, but whether, they're actually executing, the refunds at that time is unknown. It's probably unlikely, which is why it's more important now than ever kind of to understand what you should be doing to preserve your right for refunds.
Now, how's that going to work? So a lot of people are asking us, what about the liquidation and the timing and the protest or not protest or the filing? Give me some input there.
Yeah, I think right now kind of where we're at, just based on the way the CAPE system is getting set up and reading that and looking at that in accordance with, Brandon Lord's declaration from Customs. Yeah. I think if, with unliquidated entries, I don't think there necessarily needs to be any action taken right now. I think if your entries are falling, in the first half of liquidation, potentially holding off for now just to see if you can get them captured in the CAPE process. A lot of that's just dependent on how soon that gets rolled out, if there's appeals and whatnot. If you have entries, I think, that are on the back end of the liquidation, nearing that 180 days, or even, 91 days, where CBP has kind of made it clear that they don't have the authority to reliquidate the entries and issue the refunds, you should definitely be considering submitting protests. If a lot of your money's tied up in finally liquidated entries, at this time, it seems like the best course of action is to submit a lawsuit. And it's always at this, just based on the uncertainty right now between when the refunds are going to go into place, are there going to be appeals? Is this going to drag on for years? Submitting a lawsuit's always a good option. I think there's over 3,000 that have been submitted to date. Yeah. So that's always an option, irrespective of the status of your entries, and that kind of guarantees preserving your right, regardless of the liquidation of the entries.
And Bobby even learned some new legal terminology in my research.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's called judicial estoppel, and what you get when you file a lawsuit is just that. And what is it? In layman's terms, it simply means you cannot move the goalposts.
Right.
You, the government, once we file a suit, you cannot come back to us and say, oh, wait, those that were unliquidated don't get refunds, those that were this timing here and all of that, no tag backs.
Right.
So that is one of the main reasons that a lot of firms have come up and said, for this, we recommend.
Right.
With all the theories that are out there, and this is one of the things we did. because we were recognizing, judicial estoppel coming into play here.
Well, and I think, too, to that point, the DOJ is made it clear, and I think as part of an appeal, they're likely going to argue if you don't have a court case on file, regardless of the CAPE processing, etc. The order from March 4th from Customs seemed to imply that all importers would be eligible to get refunds. But it also seems, on the other hand, with an appeal, that they're going to argue if you aren't a litigant in the IEEPA case, that you can't get your money back, which is why that's another advantage of potentially filing a lawsuit. So there's so much uncertainty right now.
Right.
That it's tough to know what you should be doing, but filing a lawsuit right now is always a good option. Definitely something that
I put a video together, and it was just based on that indelible footprint. That's what I want in the system right now, because to me it's just a firm grip on where we're going, but not knowing.
Right.
We don't like the not knowing any more than you do out there. Trust me on this.
Right.
When Brandon and I have been on these calls, what we're actually asking you to look, how you have your ACE account, and some of them said no. We can help you get set up with an ACE account.
Right.
If you need us to. We just need access to that once this comes into play. Okay? And then we can help you make sure item by item that this is going to be into play with CAPE.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. And a lot of the data we've looked at, clients are happy that we've been able to pull those reports because what they're thinking of the status of their entries was before we pulled the report was different than what the actual data was saying. So it actually changed our strategy as to, should they file a lawsuit? Should they just be submitting protests, right? And because normally CBP will liquidate an entry after 314 days, but they also could liquidate it early. So you don't necessarily know, and you shouldn't just be relying on that generality without actually looking at the hard data.
Yeah. A couple other things that Brandon and I have done as we've gone through the process of these IEEPA filings, one of which is if you have different entities, you have to file separately. It's based on the tax ID number. But we've discounted. We're charging an absolutely nominal fee to do this.
Right. Because
we don't know. We did the same thing with Section 301 years ago. Based on what not knowing, it was a nominal fee, because that is still in the court system to this day.
Right.
So, but we've come up with a lay of the land how we're handling that internally here. So we're working with you. Just know that in advance. If you come to us with, and we had one that was 16 different, can I just lop this all into one filing? And the answer is, I'm sorry, but no, we can't do that.
Right. Okay. Yeah. The only exception to that, I would think, is if potentially they're just different branch operations with the same IOR and potentially different suffixes, but otherwise the court action itself is on an IOR basis.
Okay. So with all the theories that are out there and all the opinions that are out there with all the various legal minds, this is pretty much ours. We're trying to do the best that we can to give you the information that you need in order to make a good decision. But again, we don't know all we would love to know.
Right.
This is the course we're taking because we want to make sure that you get your money.
Right. I think right now, the general recommendation is if you're not sure what to do, submitting the lawsuit's probably in your best interest, and then going from there, whether that means submitting a lawsuit and then also submitting protests. That's kind of the belts and suspenders approach, just getting everything in there, ensuring you're preserving your right for refund. But like Bob said, it's definitely like an interesting time where nobody, not just our firm, just kind of across the industry, nobody really knows what to do because the court and customs hasn't provided much clarity. I think over the next month or two there'll be more clarity on that, but all the importer can do right now is kind of just do what they have to do to preserve their right and then go from there.
And we're not solo in this. I want to give a shout out to George Tuttle. I want to give a shout out to Michelle Schultz with Schultz Trailer. I mean, we talk to other firms, who work with us.
Right.
And we're all in agreement here.
Yeah, and I think, not only that, but there's, status calls amongst all the plaintiffs' attorneys that are happening, it seems like, on a weekly basis where everyone's kind of floating different ideas. Yep. But I'd say the general ideas are all the same right now. It's, submit the lawsuit, submit the protest, and then wait and see what happens.
Yeah. And ladies and gentlemen, once again, judicial estoppel. Can you say that? I know you can. Say judicial estoppel. Anyhow, that's where we're at. I appreciate you stopping by and giving us an update, Brandon. And you and I will keep plugging away. Even though I'm in London next week, it's business as usual, right?
It's business as usual. Give us a call.
Where are you? Are you in the office or you're out playing again?
I'm going to be in St. George, Utah.
Sorry, Georgia. All right, as you may know, still ranked number 25 with
I'm
pickleball.
about 30-ish these days.
30-ish these days, globally ranked with pickleball. This guy's a pro.
But still here to file your lawsuit if you need it.
Don't get me wrong. I see. Yes, we're constantly in contact with each other.
Yeah.
All right, man.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.